Okay. I see what's happening, yeah. You're face to face with greatness and it's strange. You don't even know how you feel.
Hello, world.
Nice to see that humans never
What's up, guys? This is Dave from the Fight Bananas podcast, and this episode is a special, very cool episode, dear to me. This is family. I got my cousin, Joseph. He's coming on the line. He has his own podcast, and I'm excited. This is going to be fun. His podcast is about Disney. Diz his, and we'll get into that. We'll definitely let him everywhere you can listen to it and all that good stuff, so we'll get that rolling. And that's why that song came to start. But we're an MMA podcast. This is Fight Bananas, so we're going to talk to him, his favorite fighter, Tony Ferguson. We're going to talk about that. Also, we're going to talk about how can we get fans that are not diehards like myself into MMA. So this is going to be a great time. We're going to laugh. We're going to talk about anything and everything in between MMA and Disney. Hey, we'll make it work. This is the Fight Bananas podcast. Thank you so much. Hit up all of our sponsors. We'll say it at the end of the podcast. Warhammer Fightwear, Fusion CBD products, Manscaped, and Still Nutrition. Man, we appreciate them so much. Thank you, guys. Subscribe to the Fight Bananas on YouTube. And here we go. Let's go bananas. All right, guys. Like I said, on the Fight Bananas line, family blood, Cuzzo Joe. How you doing, my man?
Great, man. How you doing?
Doing great, man. I'm so happy you're on the podcast finally. We've been talking about this for years and years, and, now we had the little switch over to Fight Bananas podcast. We're so pumped to have you on, and, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk about some fights.
Absolutely. And before we do that, and we will definitely talk about a lot of MMA and a lot of surrounding things around mixed martial arts and UFC and all that, but definitely throw out your plugs and your podcast, and we'll definitely go, we'll come back to it, but I definitely want to start the show with that. So what's the podcast that you're on?
Okay, so I'm one of the hosts of the Diz His podcast. It's a Disney history podcast, and pretty much what we do is just kind of, take a Disney topic, and we go over the history of that topic. Could be a movie, could be an attraction, could be anything Disney, and we kind of just share. I have two other hosts with me, and we kind of just share our experiences about that topic.
Okay, I like that. I always thought about that too. Like, wouldn't it be cool to go into one fighter or one fight or one show, like one whole event, and just break it down? It can be from going in the future, even the past, like you said. It could be something like a fight that's happened, 6 years ago, and then break it down. Because I heard it. It's a great show, and I love how you give it the history, and you kind of really go all in with one topic. It's great. And of course, the best part is your guys' banter. You guys are awesome. It's a funny show, so I definitely give it 2 bananas up.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
and,
man.
When you sit there and you say, like with you going into a fight and kind of, talking about a fight, isn't that kind of what the fighters do after a fight? They probably go sit there and watch their fight and break it down. So it's kind of like a new perspective that you're kind of giving your listeners too, because that's probably what they do after a fight, right?
Right, I would think so. It's funny. I talk to so many fighters, and even on their best performances, right? I'm like, wow, like I'm like amazed by it, and I'm just not a fighter. It's just not my two things. I love the fight game. We go to gyms all the time. They became friends, family to us. It's just not me. It's just not my essence to go inside an octagon and fight someone until one is passed out. It's just not in me, right? So
yeah.
I think it's crazy, but some of them, like you said, they don't watch it. They don't even watch it back, and it's pretty wild. But okay, so who is your all-time favorite mixed martial artist?
Tony Ferguson.
Tony
I love
Ferguson. That's a great answer. Like you're definitely the Fight Bananas community. All the fans out there, they're like, okay, this Joe guy, he's starting on a good end. He's a stud. What grabbed your attention to Tony?
I love him because he's crazy. Like, he's just crazy. I love listening to him, like, talk, how he's just nuts.
Right. And, okay, so in the last, he was the champion. He had a really freak accident. He literally tore his knee, ACL, walking off of a interview at the UFC headquarters before, like, literally a week before one of his fights.
Yeah. And, that's funny because, the last fight that I watched him fight, afterwards he kind of talked about that, and he was he was just saying how he doesn't feel pain and all these different things. I was like, man, this guy's nuts. I want to see him, fight more.
So, yeah, no, Tony Ferguson definitely has a flock of fans. He's crazy inside and outside of the octagon, and he is the champion. He's never lost. He's the lightweight champion, and now Khabib Nurmagomedov comes on the scene that week and wins the title. And that was around, Joe, probably almost 2 years ago. Tony Ferguson has come back, has already won fights inside the octagon, didn't get the title match already, and now this fight has to happen. So, yeah. And I know you're not in the MMA community. This is imagine if the Red Sox and Yankees never played each other in the regular season, or any rival. It's just imagine if North Carolina and Duke hated each other but never fought, never played a basketball game. This is the fight everyone wants to see, needs to see. And it's just come on, guys. We don't have to waste any more time. They're both healthy. Let's get them inside the octagon before anything else can happen. We got to see this fight.
Yeah, and they've been in the past. They were about to fight a couple times, right?
4 times.
Yeah, 4 times. Freak accidents were kind of happening, right?
Yeah, different injuries. 2 times with Ferguson and 2 times with Khabib Nurmagomedov. They both kind of got injured before the fight. Nothing as crazy as Ferguson the week of tearing his ACL doing a video interview, but that was it. That was definitely the icing. And that's when Dana White was really upset and was just like, guys, it's the MMA gods. They don't want this fight to happen for whatever reason. That I'm not going to do it. We tried and tried and tried and tried.
Well, anyway, let me say.
So the 4th time the charm, Dana White needs to make this fight, and that's the fight I'm excited for. Will that fight get you to a bar? Will that get you into? Would you order the pay-per-view if Ferguson and Nurmagomedov were in the main event?
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
And how many fights do you buy or go to? A year, an average a year.
I would say I go to about 3 a year.
Okay. So who else other than Ferguson grabs you and grabs your attention and you're like, okay, wow, I'm ordering this pay-per-view, honey. To tell the kids they got to go to bed early. I know it's a Saturday, but we're buying the fight.
Well, of course, Conor McGregor.
Ooh, okay.
He's a big name. And then Khabib also, man. I think he's a great fighter.
He is. Undefeated as well. Never lost. Even defeated a bear. The man just doesn't know how to lose a fight. He really is incredible. And that's so interesting to me. All 3 of those fighters are all lightweights. They've kind of Khabib have fought, Conor, and Khabib is supposed to fight Tony. It's almost like a round robin. I would love to see Conor versus Tony. That would be an incredible fight to watch.
Yeah. Khabib is a very defensive fighter, would you say?
I don't think he's defensive. I just don't think he's, off. Okay. So my analogy for a football team, maybe the Seahawks, a lot of people think they're a defensive team. I think they're offensive. They just run the ball a lot, and Russell Wilson makes big plays. There's different ways. They're not just a throwing offense like the Rams all over the place. So, Nurmagomedov, he's offensive, but he's just not like Tony. Tony punches and strikes and knees and elbows. He's just super aggressive all the time with throwing different shots. You just never know what's coming your way. Nurmagomedov, sets his sights, and he's going to wrestle you down. He's going to get your waist. He's going to get your legs. He's going to put you on your butt, on your back against the cage, and he's going to tear you up. That's just what that man does over and over and over again.
And he's the best at it.
Oh, yeah. He really is. There's no argument. He's in his prime right now, and he's fought the murderers row. He just fought Dustin Poirier around 3-4 months ago, defeated him.
Yeah, I watched that fight.
Okay, cool. Okay, so then this is a cool question just because, I really think this should connect with you, and I would love your take on it, and, we'll see where it goes. What can the UFC do to grab more, people like you, fans like you that, you have a favorite fighter or two, or, you'll see 3 events a year. Me, And now with the UFC being on ESPN and ESPN Plus, Joe, it's like on every weekend. Literally almost every Saturday there's an event. Some, of course, are bigger than others. There's a really big event coming up, UFC 244, Madison Square Garden. They're calling it the BMF title, Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. It's like a fighter's dream. Like, this is insane. Like, this is the card that I would say, hey, I would wish you grab 3, 4, 5 friends who really aren't into UFC. Sit down for this one, and I think after that show, you will become fans of the sport. So, like, what can the UFC do to kind of grab you and people like fans of his podcast?
Oh, well, I was we were kind of talking about this earlier, but before we get into it, Nate Diaz, also love him. He's a great fighter. Also, I can't wait for that fight also coming up. Cool. But I just wanted to talk about the people that I mentioned, that Conor, Khabib, Tony, they all have big personalities. So I think UFC, they need like bigger personalities. Okay.
So like WWE, they need to make like superstars. They need to make people, good guys or bad guys. The Joker's a huge movie. Everyone I know has seen it. Joker's a bad guy, but sometimes bad guy sells, and you are excited to see Batman come out of nowhere and save the day and defeat the Joker. So sometimes, a big personality doesn't have to be Tim Tebow. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, God and good. Maybe you need a villain. Maybe it's like, I got to see this guy get his butt whooped.
But even the bad guys have big personalities, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Of course. The Joker,
Yeah, exactly, right? And, I was like thinking about it, it's like what wrestler comes to mind in WWE that kind of brought WWE on the map?
Like old school or kind of
old school. Like
Hulk Hogan.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
And think about this for a second. Hulk Hogan.
Right.
What moves was he like a high flyer? Was he? What was his he was. What was his finishing move?
Leg drop.
Yeah, man. Like how? But
everyone
does
Hulk
Hogan.
It.
With his personality. When he was on the mic, that's what drew people to him, right?
Oh, 100%. This is a great point. Inside the wrestling ring, Hulk Hogan is the 6,742nd best wrestler. But my mom knows him. Kids know him. Grandparents, everyone in the world knows who Hulk Hogan is. His skill level is not the best, not even close.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah. It's on the mic, his charisma, his look. And then, of course, good luck, timing, all that has big parts to do with it. But no, I love your point.
Yep, and think about The Rock, right? Was he, what was his finishing moves, like the people's elbow, right? Was this an elbow? But what was it that made the people's elbow great? Was like the whole taking off the armband, throwing it into the crowd, doing the whole thing with the arms and running. That it was all theatrics,
Wow, great point. No, I'm liking this. So you're thinking, if some fighters got a little bit more, into theater, like more of that, like more, even if it's a comedy or dark or, like I said, good or bad, but just a little bit more pep in their step, kind of that little bit of a,
Yeah, kind of like Conor. Ooh. Conor had it.
Yeah. Oh, he still does. The guy doesn't fight anymore, but yeah, he definitely still has the pep in his step. He's just, somehow... That's a sad story. If, he was on top of the world, on top of the mixed martial arts world, even when he was losing, he lost 2 out of the 5 fights towards the end, but he was still, everyone, loved him. He was humongous. But then just now he's always in the news with, assaults and misdemeanors and, stuff with his wife. It's a sad, sad story.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right.
So, do you think does it take 1 or 2 fighters doing it? Or if 30 did it, would that be like, wow, there's just so much going on. This is cool because maybe one is vanilla, one strawberry, one is cookies and cream. So there's just a lot. Or would that, maybe liquidate the product, and maybe all you need is like 1, 2, or 3. All you need is The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and The Undertaker, and the rest are just side characters.
Yeah, I think we'll just need like a handful,
Okay.
And You know, like when you think about it, think about Hulk Hogan, you think about The Rock. You know, they made it into like movies, right? And that also like reaches out to a lot more like people. That will reach out to the 80%. Have there been any like UFC fighters that have been in like any movies or anything like that?
George,
like small parts, right?
Yeah,
like Ronda
yeah.
Rousey was in a couple movies.
Yeah, Ronda was in like the Fast and the Furious ones. GSP, who's like an all-timer, he was in the Captain America 2. He was awesome. He fought Chris Evans early in the movie.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, not a lot. There hasn't been a major crossover superstar. I'm trying to think of who else. Yeah, and you know the UFC too. You know, probably in the last 4 years, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor. You know, John Jones is back now. But those three guys, 2 guys and a girl, I could argue those are 3 of the biggest names, biggest draws, pay-per-views, ticket sales, all that, and they're all gone. They're, you know, Ronda's in WWE. Now she's trying to make a baby. I think she, you know, Brock is in the WWE. Conor just can't stay at his own way. He's like Mike Tyson almost. But yeah, no, I'm with you. They just need.
He's kind of like Mike Tyson. You're right.
It's right. It's a crazy parallel.
Yeah,
he's just at his both of their peaks. They're must-see TV, pay-per-view sales, massive wins, crazy quick knockouts for both men, and now it's like you got to think the out of the ring stuff has really cut their career short.
Yeah. But, you know, even if Conor was to come back tomorrow and say he's going to fight, you know, in a couple months, people are still going to go ahead and buy by the pay-per-view. And same thing with Mike Tyson. Even though Mike Tyson was like, you know, had all this stuff going outside the ring, still, you know, obviously he's like really old now, but not really old, but he's older now. But, you know, before, even after he did all those things, people will still go ahead and buy his pay-per-views because Mike Tyson, you know? Yeah.
Oh, no, that's very true. Do you think the UFC should try to go a little bit more showbiz? Try to go, you know, remember, I don't know if you saw this, like the Tom Cruise, Justin Bieber, like that got really mainstream pub. Do you think they should try to do something like that? How about The Rock inside the octagon? Like everyone in the world would buy that pay-per-view, right?
Well, you know, obviously, the people who are fighting in the octagon, I mean, it's like for real. It's like a big time. It's like, you know, you have to train a lot and everything. I don't think they should get these people, you know, man, like when you're saying Tom Cruise, Justin Bieber, I bet you people, I mean, I wouldn't really be down to watch that, you know, be like, whatever, but I bet you that will reach that 80%. So maybe you're like on something right there. Yeah, I think they need to bring, you know, even how about more athletes? One is Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy, football player, let's just say he got kicked out of the league, I believe. You know, Roger Goodell, you know, broke too many rules, right? So he got kicked out of the league, and now he's a UFC heavyweight. He's like a superstar. He's doing really good. Even like trying to think of some athletes that are, you know, okay in their sport, but I feel like if they went to mixed martial arts just because of their athletic ability and their size, that's another thing. I always wondered why we haven't seen a 6'8", 6'9", you know, LeBron James inside the octagon. How about Kawhi Leonard inside the octagon? His defensive skills, he's boxing out. How about a football player, Odell Beckham Jr.? He's so fast and quick. You know, I know he's not putting up fantasy numbers, but him inside the octagon would sell pay-per-views. It would sell pay-per-views, but of course, I don't think those athletes don't want to do it, man, because it's hard work. I mean, who wants to get hit, you know?
That's true. And it would have to be someone, you know, because those guys have made millions, billions, right? You know, I think literally LeBron signed the $1 billion shoe deal. You would have to get someone who's, you know, on the back end of their career or maybe got, you know, their career was short with injury, so they can't be a football player, but once every quarter or once every 6 months they could fight. That could be something that they could get. But, So,
real quick, you know, Ultimate Fighter. Do you remember the Ultimate Fighter?
Oh, of course.
On like Spike TV, was it at the time?
Yeah, Spike. That was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. And so my wife, who is not like, you know, into UFC at all, but when that was on, like her and I watched that, and that's, I mean, whatever happened to that?
They still did it. What happened was, same kind of thing. They watered it down. There was too many of them, and one thing they did, and I was a big fan of, and then when it happened, I was like, oh no, they never took a break. If the show was on once a year and they had a start and a finish, you had to watch it, or you would miss it, and you would miss it for the year, and then they would just leave for 7 months. That would be, kind of like football. That's why it's so huge. You got to see it. You can't miss it. Everything is just, such magnified. Every game matters so much. What that show did, The Ultimate Fighter, like, it would end, and literally, like, 2 months later, they would, like, reboot and do another one. It was just because it was, like you said, so popular. And then, there was maybe 24, 25. They went to different countries, and it wasn't even on, like, it would be on the app, and it was just, like, it just lost its luster.
Yeah, and it's kind of like listening to that one song over and over again on the radio.
Right. Eminem, Lose Yourself. There's only so many times I can hear that song. Okay, B-Rabbit, relax. But one thing that kind of took over, and I think same thing, if, your wife on a Tuesday night, and I would be like, guys, watch this. So it's over now, and they do it. It's really good. Usually it's 10 weeks. It's usually in the summer, in the really heat of the summer, when there's no football, there's really no basketball other than the finals, right? Mm-hmm. They call it the Dana White Contender Series, and it's on ESPN Plus. There's only 5 fights a night, so it's not a 3-hour thing. Usually it's sometimes an hour, hour and a half, and if it's quicker, right? So, and one thing I love about this show is they're all contenders. None of them have a deal. It's all these guys and girls. They've been around the game a while, or they're super young, and this is like their break. Like, this is their first time fighting in front of Dana White. They're trying to get the UFC contract, and there's just something cool about, like, the come up, and they do a really good job with backstories and pictures and videos, and they do it. It's phenomenal. It's for me, it's must see TV. Sometimes it's even better than the pay-per-views on that weekend. So Tuesday night, I'm telling you, check that out with your wife. Dana White Contender Series. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
There you go. Look at that. I'm making you into an MMA fan. Okay, all right. Tell me, on your podcast, Diz His, for one, how can they watch it, see it, download it, listen to it?
So on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Diz His 65, DIZHIZ 65. You can also follow us. That's pretty much what we're on. But on Apple, we're on Apple Podcasts. We're on all the podcast outlets. You can get us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify. Just go ahead and search Diz His 65.
65, is that when Disney was created?
That is not when Disney was created, but let me tell you the story, I guess.
Okay.
So Disney, of course, started in California, right? Disneyland.
Yep.
And so Walt Disney was out here buying like a bunch of land, like under different names in Orlando, right? Just buying like all this land, but he was buying them under different names because as soon as they found out, Disney was buying land, they're going to jack up the prices like crazy, right?
Oh, that's
so
cool.
He's buying all this
Very
land,
smart.
and then when they found out what was going on, the Orlando Sentinel found out that exactly, Disney was doing all this. It was the year 1965. So that's when they came out and said that they were going to go ahead and build Disney World here in Orlando, Florida. It was 1965.
Oh, that's awesome. I've never heard that story. I love that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, I'm putting you right on the spot. I like that one so much. I mean, throw me another one. What's a cool story I've never heard of, and it's like, holy crap.
So another cool story. So ever since I started doing this podcast, Walt Disney, he really loved his parks, and he was always, this is actually a story I haven't told anyone yet, not even on the podcast, but once I was working at a technology place where I was fixing printers, and the guy I was working with, who was older, and he was kind of like one of the head technicians. So he used to work over at Disneyland in California, and he was like a security guard. So one day he was walking around, and he saw some guy. It was like late at night, whatever. It was like early in the morning, like 1, 2 o'clock, and he saw some guy like walking around, and it was Walt Disney, and he got to chill out with Walt Disney for a couple hours. And then the next morning, he went to like a meeting. And none of his friends believed him, of course, sat there and talked with Walt Disney for a couple hours.
Right.
And Walt came up and was speaking, and he came over and kind of addressed them. And all his friends were like, oh, dang. So that's kind of a cool little story.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. What's your favorite Disney movie of all time?
My favorite Disney movie of all time?
Yep.
I'm gonna go with Moana. I love Moana. I can watch that movie over and over again.
Of course. That started the podcast with the Little Rock Moana, and it was so cool. How funny is this? A UFC fighter on Facebook said, they did that, when you can share something on Facebook, and it's a picture of Moana, and it said, hey, Moana 2 coming out. They just green lighted it, and he captioned it by saying, you're welcome. I was like, that was good. That was a good touch. I like that.
Yeah. Wow. How about you, man? What's your favorite Disney movie?
Is Marvel, does it count?
Yeah, we can count Marvel movies.
Oh, it's 100%. It's Avengers. For 32 years of my life, Jerry Maguire was my favorite movie of all time, and Avengers, not even the first time seeing it. Of course, I loved it. I'm just a huge Marvel fan freak. I love it. Love the origin stories, and I love that first movie of all of them together. But then it was like at home, son Colin, Colin, right? And he loved it. We put it on. It was just one of those things. We watched it like 6 times in a week, and it's just, I'm like, we're missing lunches. I'm not doing laundry anymore. And I'm like, it's taken over my life. And I'm like, this is literally the greatest movie I've ever seen. And I made a decisive decision right there. Avengers is now my new favorite movie of all time.
Awesome, man. Yeah. The Avenger movies are great.
They're great. And that end scene of Endgame, I was talking about Facebook again. I put it on. It's definitely one of the, being a father, there's nothing better, more important in my life than, any father's life, right? And my wife Susie and I, we watched Avengers Endgame in the theater when it first came out, like the first night, whatever. But Colin, he was 6, about to be 7 at the time. Didn't see it in theaters. It's long, and, I saw it right away. Saw it at night, and I was just going to, of course, I knew I was going to buy it. So we watched it at home. I remember putting it on and just, so pumped, and he was, watching the whole thing. And, of course, the one before it, I didn't like the ending. It was just oh, my gosh, I was just, so miserable. I'm like, Spider-Man's literally dying in front of us. Anyway, so the end of Endgame, that 20 minutes, Captain America is literally walking by himself in front of a million bad guys and Thanos. He puts the shield on his arm, and he's just walking. And then, they come out and, hey, on your left. And my son's like, he's getting closer and closer to the TV, and his eyes are back. And he's like, Dad, Black Panther. Dad, Spider-Man. They're all coming back. They all come back. The music hit. It's the best scene in movie history. It's just, and my son is freaking out. They're all winning, and he's jumping up and down. It's like watching the Yankees win the World Series. It was just one of the craziest, best father-dad, son moments of my life.
Dude, man, I just got goosebumps listening to you talk about that.
There you go, man. There you go. Look at that. Fight Bananas podcast talking Endgame. I love it. This is a great show. But yeah, Joe, do you have any other fight questions, UFC stuff, anything else you want to talk about, MMA style?
No, I'm good, man.
Okay, cool, man. I really appreciate you coming on. 30 minutes. It went a little bit longer than I thought. I hope everyone definitely go follow Diz His, listen to the shows. It's funny. If you like Disney or not even like Disney, you hear cool stories like that. I didn't know that about Walt Disney Orlando 65. That's awesome. I'm in.
Yeah.
So, man, big fans of you guys. Love your show. Continue success, and we'll talk real soon. All right, Cuzzo?
Sounds great, man. Thanks.
All right, man. Later.
Take it easy.